In Dushanbe, the usually quiet Tajik capital, the arrival of a major world leader has turned the city into the stage for high-stakes diplomacy. Russian President Vladimir Putin has begun a 3-day state visit to Tajikistan at the invitation of President Emomali Rahmon. The visit comes at a delicate moment for Moscow's influence in Central Asia and for regional security more broadly. The trip began with all the formalities of a state welcome. Putin's plane touched down at Dushanbe's international airport to the sight of an honor guard and the red carpet greeting of President Rahmon. The two leaders exchanged a firm handshake and a few words as cameras captured the carefully choreographed moment. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov and Russian state journalists stood nearby, underscoring how closely this visit is being watched by both governments and their media. Soon after, the atmosphere shifted from official to symbolic. The first stop on Putin's visit was the Iram Botanic Garden, one of the capital's most tranquil landmarks. There, the Russian president and his Tajik host walked side by side, exchanging warm gestures. The scene was designed to convey more than protocol. It projected familiarity and a sense of personal rapport between the two leaders. In the garden, the two leaders sat down for what was described as an informal lunch, a setting often used in diplomacy to allow more candid discussion than formal halls permit. Cameras recorded Putin presenting a framed painting to President Rahmon, a gesture meant to highlight friendship and mutual respect. Such gifts, though ceremonial, carry symbolic weight. They help set the tone for the more serious talks that follow. Later in the day, the tone became more solemn. The Russian president joined his host to lay a wreath at the monument of Ismail Somoni, the revered 10th century figure often regarded as the father of the Tajik nation. The moment reflected not only respect for Tajik history, but also an acknowledgement of the country's national pride, a key message for a nation that has long balanced its sovereignty with its reliance on Russian security ties. This visit is not just about bilateral gestures. The Kremlin has signaled that President Putin's time in Dushanbe will serve a wider regional purpose. Over the next 3 days, Putin is set to meet the heads of all 5 Central Asian ex-Soviet republics. Of particular interest is a scheduled meeting with Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev. Relations between Moscow and Baku have cooled in recent months, with tensions over energy transit routes and shifting alliances in the South Caucasus. The Dushanbe summit, therefore, is seen as a chance to defuse those tensions and reassert Russia's role as a regional mediator. For Tajikistan, the visit is a moment of prestige. The small mountainous country depends heavily on Russian military assistance and on the remittances sent home by the hundreds of thousands of Tajik workers in Russia. Hosting such a high-profile gathering allows President Rahmon to reinforce his image as a stable partner to all sides, from Moscow to Beijing and Ankara, while still emphasizing Tajikistan's own national interests. The optics of this visit matter. The informal lunch in the Botanic Garden, the ceremonial handshake, the symbolic gift, the wreath laid at the Somoni monument, each scene conveys a specific message. For the Kremlin, it is a show of enduring influence at a time when Moscow faces challenges elsewhere. For Dushanbe, it is reassurance to the public that their country remains significant on the regional stage. Observers note that behind the cameras and ceremony, the discussions are likely to focus on security cooperation, border management and trade links. Russia continues to see Tajikistan as a critical ally in maintaining stability along Central Asia's southern frontier, particularly given the uncertain situation in neighboring Afghanistan. Tajikistan, in turn, relies on Russia's military presence and defense commitments to keep its borders secure. This high-stakes diplomacy also plays out against a shifting regional order as China expands its economic footprint through infrastructure investment and as Turkey deepens cultural and political ties in the region. Russia seeks to reaffirm that it remains the primary guarantor of security and influence in Central Asia. Tajikistan's leadership, mindful of these competing interests, must carefully balance relations among these powers. For President Rahmon, who has led Tajikistan for over 3 decades, this summit is another opportunity to show his country's relevance in shaping regional dialogue. For President Putin, it is a chance to demonstrate that Moscow still commands respect and partnerships in the former Soviet space, even as it navigates strained relations with the West and shifting alliances closer to home. The next 2 days of the visit will be closely watched. Talks with other Central Asian leaders are expected to address regional economic integration, migration and counter-terrorism cooperation. The anticipated meeting with Azerbaijan's President Aliyev could provide clues as to whether Moscow can ease the recent chill in relations with Baku. For now, the images from Dushanbe tell a story of ceremony and symbolism: a handshake on the tarmac, a stroll in the garden, a gift of art, a wreath laid in honour of a national hero. Each moment is choreographed to convey continuity, partnership and mutual respect, the pillars of Russia's long-standing role in Tajikistan and the wider region. As the summit unfolds, the world will be watching whether these gestures translate into tangible agreements that address the region's security challenges and shifting alliances. For both leaders, this visit is more than a diplomatic formality. It is a statement of intent at a time of geopolitical uncertainty.